This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
1 week from today, we will be kicking off the NFL season, but fortunately for us, we don't have to wait to have meaningful football on our TVs. 17 college football games getting underway today, including a top 25 team of Boise State taking on South Florida in just over 3 hours. We'll hit on all of that as we welcome you in here to Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network, live from downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino, home of the world's largest sportsbook. I'm Stormy Buonantony. He's Jonathan Von Tobel. And speaking of meaningful games, JVT, we have 3 in Major League Baseball that are about to get underway in the next 10 to 15 minutes. D-backs, Brewers, Rockies, Astros, Pirates, Cardinals, all set to get started here shortly. Anyone that you had any interest in this morning?
Well, I don't know why you're asking me, because I know you got interest in one. I think you have a bet.
I want to give you an opportunity to speak a little bit here. I don't just want to ramble for the first 5 minutes of the show.
No, it's your show. Come on now, let's go.
Stop it.
Arizona, Milwaukee. Chris Matt's going to get the start for Arizona. Quintana will oppose him. We've seen this go down from $1.70 in favor of Milwaukee to like $1.50. I think you're on the side with the steam, are you not?
Yes, I like Arizona. I bet on plus 145 this morning before I made the drive in. Quintana going for Milwaukee, who, yes, is 10-4 with a 3.32 ERA, but you've made me a big baseball savant chart person, and when you look at those charts, the red is good, blue is bad, and there is a whole lot of blue on his charts. The expected ERA over 5, BABIP, so the batting average on balls in play, career low, 254, well under league average. The K rate and whiff rate numbers are really low. He also has a remarkably good strand rate, which is not sustainable. Worth noting as well, he also pitches better on the road than at home. He's got 4 losses this year. 3 of them have come in Milwaukee. So I feel like a lot of the numbers for him just make it seem like he's overvalued in this spot. Very little sample for our pitcher on the other side for Arizona, but in 9 innings this month against the Reds and Rockies, just 1 run allowed, 9 strikeouts, ground ball pitcher, doesn't give up a lot of hard contact. His lone start in Colorado, and we know what a hitter's park that can be, 1 earned run on 3 hits. I contemplated doing the F5 instead of the full game money line just because of how bad Arizona's bullpen is, but I did elect to go full game for this one.
Yep, not going to argue with you. I think that's part of the reason why we saw the market move the way it has. With Chris Matt, it's not a large sample size. To your point, the one blip on the radar, if you will, was the 13 innings he pitched in 2023. But every other, whether it be small or large, bit of data at the major league levels is that he's been a relatively solid dude when he's been out there. So you put those things together, and again, this is, we're getting into football season, so the point spread is the great equalizer. I can convince you to bet on a Cleveland Browns because the spread is there, or at least make you think about doing it. In baseball, you're just projecting, I just think the probability is a little bit lower that this team's going to win this game. So you need the D-backs to do it. But I would agree with you. If you're talking about just that price from where this opened, I thought that opened pretty high for what we know about Quintana's underlying metrics. And look, he's carrying on the tradition of former Angels pitchers moving on and being great. It's absolutely fantastic. But I do think that there is some expiration date at some point for the way that he has been pitching, and we'll see if it happens today. But I would agree with your side here, and you got the right of it because we're down to plus 128 at some spots for the D-backs.
Speaking of the Angels, how are you feeling after yesterday?
I mean, I know. Look, here's the thing for the Angels, and trust me, I have been on the side.
It's like a 20-3 L.
Yes, trust me. I have watched this team get massacred, and I think this is like the second time in a few years that they have allowed 20 runs or more. I've seen this happen. This goes back to what we've discussed with the team. There are a lot of people asking me, hey, when they were floating around that 500 mark, what do you think? Can they make the playoffs? My answer was always the same. No, they're going to push, and they should go over their win total. They're about 10 wins away from doing that. That should be the crowning achievement of this season. They should have sold at the deadline. They kind of fake bought at the deadline. I think we were all expecting this to come. When we talked about this at the deadline, the Angels were a team that had a great record in one-score games, had an abhorrent record in games that were decided by 5 or more runs, had a negative run differential, had every indication that they were going to implode, and that has truly happened. And yesterday was just kind of, the cherry on top of what is now a stretch in which they have lost 5 out of the last 6.
Well, a handful of interesting results yesterday in MLB, by the way. The Mets complete the sweep of the Phillies. Ohtani picks up up a win for the Dodgers. He goes 5 innings for the first time, gives up just 1 run and 9 of what was a franchise record 19 strikeouts for Dodgers pitchers yesterday. Had a brawl in the Braves game. The Yankees had 1/2 inning the last 41 minutes for how many runs were scored there. So a lot of interesting stuff yesterday. And then also, as we mentioned, Rockies and Astros, Kyle Freeland versus Jason Alexander there. Astros getting money is a big favorite out from minus 235 to I'm seeing even like minus 260 now. Rockies plus 200 or better. Total in that one down from 9 to 8.5. And then Pirates, Cardinals, Braxton Ashcraft, Miles Michaelis, Cards minus 120, Pirates around even money. Run total in that one 8.5, although I think DK is at 8. And we do have one game in action right now in Major League Baseball as well. The Red Sox up 2-1 on the Orioles. That said, any thoughts on any of those before we get into the rundown?
You pretty much hit them all. Obviously, in terms of interest and narrative, I will point out that the Red Sox, who have now, won 3 or 4 straight or whatever they've done at this point right now, pushing potentially the Toronto Blue Jays for the AL East. We'll see. Again, as we talk about 4 games, it's a bad week, and all of a sudden you could find yourself in the lead, and the Yankees all of a sudden are starting to win games too. So AL East, not done by any stretch, so we'll see if Boston can take advantage of this and maybe thrust themselves in contention for the division. But we seem to have, I think, solidified for the most part who our top 3 or our wild card teams are going to be and who our top 6 are in Major League Baseball. We'll see if the Royals can actually make a push here because they're playing some pretty good baseball too.
Yeah, you are right. Won all 3 so far in this, now in the 4th game of this set against the Orioles, and took 3 of 4 from the Yankees last week. Okay, let's set the table for everything else we have to come. Lots of football on deck. This is the Rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
All right, we'll cruise through this in 30 minutes. Stanford Steve Coughlin, College GameDay, SV Pod, SportsCenter. He is going to join us coming up, break down the Week 1 slate. We'll also have Mark Drumheller, Fantasy Life, fantasy football analyst, early in hour 2, and then right after him, Alyssa Lang of SEC Network and ESPN. She is a college football sideline reporter as well. We'll get some of her thoughts on the SEC slate coming up. Number 2 in our top items, some DraftKings house rules changes. You brought this to my attention yesterday. We wanted to confirm that it was real, and it is, and something that any bettor on DK should be aware of.
Yes, the intricacies of this and the ramifications of it, obviously all over Twitter, but what it means and what it can mean for DraftKings, I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it. So it'll be fun to kind of get into the minutia of what seems like on the surface is a questionable addition to the house rules at best.
And we're going to start in the NFL, and rightfully so with some news coming out of Indy, your team. Colts general manager Chris Ballard is over the QB questions. Take a listen to what he had to say yesterday on the podium when pressed about the decision of the organization to go with Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback.
We do have like 51 other guys on the team. Do we have any other questions on the team? I mean, you can keep spinning this other one as many ways as you want, but we do have 51 other teams. Absolutely. And look, let me say this. They deserve to ask these questions. And I understand the doubt. I get it. And that's our job to go prove it at the end of the day.
Well, you are our resident Colts expert. You want to pick this up?
This guy sucks. Look, Chris Ballard is entering now, or is in, his 9th season as as general manager of the Indianapolis Colts. You know how many playoff wins he has?
Hit us with it.
One. He's got 1. When he, thankfully, stumbled into a job in which Andrew Luck was still the quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. They beat the Houston Texans, went on to lose to the Kansas City Chiefs, a game I unfortunately watched on the couch of one Michael Lombardi, the final game I would ever see for Andrew Luck.
Little did you know at the time.
Little did I know. I was at the top of the world, and then all of a sudden it just comes crashing down. This guy has never led a team that's won the division in the AFC South. If you look at one of his most recent draft classes, that includes the 2023 draft in which Anthony Richardson was the top of it, it is littered with guys who are on practice squads of other teams, not in football, cut from this current roster this last season, or benched for Daniel Jones, who you went out to go and get, obviously that being Richardson. I don't understand the arrogance. I don't understand because he caught himself. If you notice at the beginning of the clip, he goes, when I deserve, and he stopped and had to say, you don't deserve anything. In fact, if you look at the track record of general managers who have failed upward and have done nothing over the tenure of their careers, it is incredible that you're able to last as long as you are at the position at which you are. The defensive backfield's a mess due to injury, but also because you haven't drafted particularly well. I don't understand where this comes from. You are being questioned for a reason. And in the same press conference, he's asked about the development of Anthony Richardson, whether or not we should, the general we, believe in what he's doing and what this team is doing. And he has the audacity to say, like, no, I still believe in him. He can be a franchise quarterback. We just got to be patient. We knew what this was going to be. We knew it was going to be a roller coaster. Then why are we getting off the roller coaster? It goes back to what you and I discussed, what I brought up with Mike Palm. There's no metric that points to him outside of wins and losses and the improvements he made last year that he is the, I guess, better quarterback than Daniel Jones. It's about what you're doing as a team with your mission with such a young quarterback that you admit is raw and needs to develop, and yet you've given up on him twice already. I'm tired of it. If anything comes from all of this, it should be that Ballard loses his job. We're not ones to call for jobs. These guys make a lot of money. This is the way of the game. He should be out after this year. There is absolutely nothing that he can point to that would tell you he deserves to stay there after this year.
Well, and to your point about Ballard's topic of the development of Anthony Richardson, right? He makes the comparison also yesterday to Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And that was also from the beginning of his career, right? Like, if you wanted this kid to sit back and learn behind a veteran, you should have done that from the beginning. But no, your whole rationale was this is a guy who needs reps. He needs to be out there on the football field. And now you bring in Daniel Jones so that he can watch and learn and grow and develop behind him. And learn what? How to fail? That's all Daniel Jones has shown anybody. He had one good year and now entering his 7th year in the National Football League. But also just the fact of if you stress so much how much he needs to be on the football field, he needs these reps, he needs the opportunity to see what he can grow and develop into. That's been taken away.
Yeah. By the way,
what are you going to do? 1.5 point spread, by the way, against the Dolphins.
Well,
week one.
no, actually, I just wanted to correct you really quickly. Despite the fact that Daniel Jones is an upgrade over Anthony Richardson, we have over the last 6 days gone from -2 to -1. It's weird.
Total still 46.5, mind you. But yeah, week one coming at you fast. We're going to step aside, take our first time out of the day. When we come back, looking at this Thursday slate of college football, week one kicking off in just a couple hours. We'll be right back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Before the line moves, the sharp plays is already there. They don't just follow the market, they help move it. You're not going to outsmart billion-dollar sportsbooks or full-time sharps on your own, but with the sharp plays, you don't have to. Powered by advanced AI and plugged into trusted insider sources, the sharp plays delivers the edge serious bettors use every day. Free betting reports, real-time alerts, and market-moving insights sent straight to your inbox or X feed. Since 2011, the Sharp Plays has delivered documented results, public logs, and transparent receipts. Check them out today, sharpplays.com, and stay ahead of the line. Alongside Jonathan Von Tobel, Stormy Buonantony with you. We're kicking off week one of the college football season today. We've got 5 straight days of college football action coming your way. Do want to thank everybody for the engagement we got yesterday. And if you want to chime in with some more, please do tweet at us at MeJVT, at Storm Buonantony, for the top 5 college football traditions. The most common response I got was that I missed Wisconsin's jump around. That's a huge one, and the stadium shakes and all of that is very fun. I've never seen that in person, would love to. Wisconsin fans, don't get mad at me. I do also love when Minnesota wins that game at home and they troll the jump around a little bit. I know it creates some chaos. People get mad, but it's fun. And also Script Ohio, of course, the Ohio State marching band, everything that they do. Those were the most common ones that I heard. You still have nothing to contribute to college football. No. You're crazy.
I love college football traditions. I like when they slap the rock and run down the hill at Clemson.
Okay, that one does give me anxiety, by the way. Are we not afraid that Dabo or somebody's going to get seriously injured?
I mean, at some
running
point,
down the
if
hill?
he stays there long enough, he's not going to do it anymore, right?
I mean, if he's
Bill
Belichick, can you imagine Bill Belichick running down the hill?
No, I can't imagine Bill Belichick running.
facts. Neither does Ralphie anymore, sadly. That's what
chest
sparked the
bouncing up and
whole
down.
thing, was
Yeah.
that he's developed an indifference to running. So we will not see that on Friday when the Buffs host Georgia Tech. That said, let's get into some of the games that we have coming up today, starting with the one that is the marquee game of the day and that you have a wager on. Number 25, Boise State, headed out to South Florida, taking on the Bulls. ESPN, 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern. And we've seen a lot of movement in this game. Boise State from 9.5, as many as double digits some places at one point, down to 5.5 now. I was hopeful, I told you yesterday, that we might get down to 5 so you could buy back on the other side. Didn't happen, so this will probably be a stay away for me. But you got the Bulls plus 6.5. How do you feel about the 5.5?
I mean, I think it's still relatively playable. As somebody who thought this was going to be closer to 4, right? I think that even though you missed out on it, it's potentially something you could still play, although you'd be kicking yourself given where this number has been. So got it plus 6.5, used them as of this morning, entered the Westgate College Super Contest. So that's on the entry card as well. A plus 6 was the number they gave us here. It just goes back to my theory. I do think Boise State is favored properly in the Mountain West, but almost by default, because I think the Mountain West is somewhat down. Having said that, I also think that this team deserves to be knocked down a peg from a power rating standpoint, especially when you saw some of the openers and where we were at. South Florida does have some upside, specifically on offense, that I think is going to push Boise State, we'll say. Going out there in this environment on the road, I think it's going to be relatively tough. When you're talking about being out in a trip out there in Florida, a pretty far trip for them. More on Maddox Madsen's shoulders, which I don't necessarily trust. If you go back to last year, buried in all of the success, especially with Anderson Genty, was a little bit of a red flag, which was a turnover-worthy play rate of over 4% for Maddox Madsen. He was putting the ball in danger, but that is masked by the fact that you don't really have to throw the ball that much, that you rely on Ashton Genty. Well, if you're asked to do more, then I think that we're going to start to see those warts pop up a little bit more, that the inverse of that will maybe start to take effect, and we start to see the turnovers tick up here for Madsen. So put all that together, I think this team is deserving of being played against. This is the theory, so we're going to test that theory and play against them in multiple ways. See if that's the case.
Well, I hope that the Bulls cover, but I still want Boise State to win this game, especially as somebody who does have a Boise State to make the playoff wager.
That's understandable.
And that's one of my picks in the college football betting guide and all of that. So 2 ways to look at this.
You're a Mountain West person.
True.
Come on.
True.
Now.
What are you going to do?
Get out of here.
Another one of the more interesting games today, I think.
Another one of the arrogant Mountain West programs.
Arrogant?
Yeah.
They're,
Come on now.
San Diego State was a life ruiner for the Mountain West.
For a while.
ECU, NC State.
Let's look at the last few years of that program, ever since Snapdragon Stadium opened up.
God, I have never been there, but I heard when the sun is beaten down on that one, it is a
you
tough
mean when
place
people
to
were
be.
dying in the first year, and they were like, we didn't think about that big sun thing, huh?
Not ideal. We do have a 14-point spread out there in Raleigh. NC State, Eastern Carolina going head-to-head. One of the more underrated rivalries, I think, got very heated in the bowl game.
Yeah.
We talked about this the other day. Big brother NC State does not like losing to little brother, and they did in the Military Bowl at the end of the season, 26-21. ECU had a nice jolt the back end of last season after firing their head coach, went 5-1 after promoting their DC. In the interim, he is that head coach now, Blake Harrell. Their quarterback also similarly took over midway through the season. He had some nice moments. I think the offense should be fine, but the defense is defense optional when it comes to ECU. I don't know how much you've looked into them, but
no, I would agree. I mean, just reading some of the reports for ECU, some of the people around the team, it does seem that is the expectation for those who are pretty close to it, that the offense is going to be ahead of the defense as we start this year and potentially all year long. And on the other end, you get NC State with C.J. Bailey, and it seems like an offense that is going to be similar despite the coordinator change. I think it's the passing game coordinator that's upgraded or moved up to offensive coordinator. So you're going to get a lot of the similar concepts. Dave Dorn had talked about that during the offseason. So you can expect, I think, a pretty baseline production from NC State in terms of what they were last year. I would think that I agree with the market more with these line moves or with the total move. We saw that open, 56 and a half, excuse me. We're up to 62. Yeah. Obviously, the ship has sailed a little bit here. We were talking about a 6-point move now to the over. But I think the market's got that right. This does look like a game in which you might get a pretty strong shootout. I trust East Carolina offensively to an extent, and I think C.J. Bailey in this offense has enough returning production that they're going to be able to score on a defense that I don't think many of us believe is going to be particularly great.
They have one starter back on the defensive side of the ball that started more than, and that's not even like a full-time starter. He started more than 5 games. Nobody else can say that on that defense. So it is a very different group. And then for NC State's defense, this was a team that gave up more than 30 points per game last year. They did bring in a handful of transfers that they really like, but how does that gel early on? So I agree with you on the total. I did lean over. I was looking at NC State's team total to see if that might be something to get involved in, but at 37.5, just felt like that was a little bit high too. So ultimately a stay away. Let's go to another team you do have interest in though, and I don't know if that carries over to the spread based on some of our other conversation. Nebraska laying 6.5, taking on Cincinnati. This game in Arrowhead. You are a big Dylan Raiola fan. You like Nebraska this year. What do you make of this opener?
I mean, I also liked the Cincinnati. This was one of the win total write-ups from last year that I had in terms of Cincinnati to go over. I think that when you look at Scott Satterfield and what he's been able to do with this program, the offense is going to be very strong. The offensive line, I think, is going to be one that's going to allow them to run the ball against opponents. I think overall, Cincinnati's almost in like this lurking sort of position where they're just going to be a team that is going to sneak up on some folks and in certain games and push them more than we think. And I think Nebraska might be one of them. I like Nebraska a lot. I think their offense is going to be pretty explosive. Now with Holgorsen, for those who don't remember, he took over in the middle of the year last year. They kind of had to reinstall stuff, almost rebuilding the plane in the air when you're talking about their offense. Now you get a full offseason to implement everything, get Raiola a lot more comfortable. I think, again, as the market has moved here, this is one where you might be expecting some points. 50.5 at the open. It's only up to about 51.5, so maybe we'll ping-pong back down. I also think Cincinnati in a high-scoring game can stay within 6.5, 7. We've seen this side, too, move back and forth all throughout these last couple of weeks. Got to 7, came back down, got to 7, came back down. So there at least seems to be some resistance in the market as well, Stormy, in that when those 7s start to appear, those that shape the market will grab those 7s and knock it back down. So I'll see if that's going to be the case. But again, going back to what we talked about, the volatility of college football, I would prefer 7. We'll hold out and wait. Okay. But I think Cincinnati would be the side, and even at 6.5 wouldn't say no, but we'll see if 7 comes back. But I like the Bearcats to be pretty alive here.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of smart people lately that like Cincinnati in this spot. And remember, again, this game is not in Cincinnati. It is at Arrowhead Stadium, so keep that in mind as well. Did you see Raiola meet Andy Reid? No,
and everybody. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, he was.
That's got to be a good picture, right?
Yeah. I can't get over the quote. God made me like this. Like, buddy.
You are playing into that like
yes.
You cannot believe. Another game with a line move very similar to what we saw with Boise State USF, Wyoming and Akron. Wyoming open -9.5. We're sitting 5.5. There's some 5s out there now. What do you think?
Dude, this is why I like college football too. It is an exercise of ego where you're just kind of looking around. You're like, hey, what games are you excited for today? You know, I'm really interested in this Wyoming Akron game.
Baby.
And I am. You know, so many, as you do too.
The
I enjoy.
Zips are getting played.
Yeah, but I enjoy Mountain West football.
Yes.
You know, partly cover the league, so that's part of it too. But I think Jay Salvell last year had more at Wyoming than he does this year, and he did a terrible job with it last year. You like your quarterback coming back. There's some positions of strength, but for the most part, I don't trust Wyoming in the role of road favorite. I understand how bad Akron was and can be, but when you talk about the opener, especially of 9.5, that was very strong. I completely agree with the market knocking this down. This is now one where, again, you're really fully off, just like, all right, let's just see what happens. I missed out on it, but I'm very interested to see if Jay Salvell and the Cowboys are going to fail, I guess, at the level they did last year, because I thought last year was very disappointing, and I'm not really big on this roster as a whole.
Slight tick to the under in this one as well, from 49.5 down to 47.5, 48, depending on where you look. Shout out a couple more people chiming in. Mikey P says singing second in the Army-Navy game, one of his favorites. Dustin Sweetelson, our good buddy over here at VSiN, said even as a Miami fan, sometimes when I watch the Chief plant the spear in Tallahassee, I get fired up, to be honest. So a handful of really fun college football traditions getting us in the spirit for week 1, and we'll keep this rolling next with Stanford Steve Coughlin of College GameDay coming up next.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158, wherever you're watching or listening, we appreciate it. YouTube TV, the VSiN Watch app. He's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Stormy Buonantony. We're going to carry over this college football conversation. We got 17 games on deck today to kick off week 1 of college football, but some awesome games on the slate coming up this weekend. And to help us get into it all, Stanford Steve Coughlin joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line. College Game Day, SportsCenter with SVP, the SV Pod, fresh off of just landing, by the way. After leaving the U.S. Open in New York, you are ready to go for game day, headed out to the Buckeye State. How's it going, Steve?
Great to be on with you guys. It's awesome. We're here. Everybody's team is worthy of a championship as we sit here, except Stanford, which I'm comfortable with. We're going to get better every week. But no, super exciting. I like to have these 3 top 10 games all on the opening Saturday is pretty special. And I think these 6 teams playing in these games have bright futures, and it's really going to be tough for people to comprehend because in the old system, you lose and you're out, and not anymore. I mean, you look at Ohio State losing the worst possible game ever last year. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. Those 2 teams play in the national championship. So hold your ground, hope your teams get better, and make up for a great season.
All right, Steve, let's start with the big boy then. Texas, Ohio State. This has steadily been moving in Texas' direction, and I don't think it would be shocking to see the Longhorns go off as a small favorite, about a 1 point or so. Do you agree with this line move that we're seeing in the market?
I do. The thing with this game, and I'm sure we'll talk to the others, is this one has the most unknown guys because I feel like Texas and Ohio State both have a ton of holes to fill. Now, with that said, that's the great thing about college football. Ohio State gets to learn who the new names are, right? Texas, who's filling all the spots from their NFL draft also. So I think it's more of a feeling out kind of game where both head coaches know they have plenty of talent. Both these teams are going to be way better in a month from now. So I lean Ohio State just with the home crowd, and I do think it's an under game. Knowing the inexperience at both the quarterback position, again, you got Sark on one side and you got Hartline on the other side for the first time calling plays. So I don't expect any crazy gadget plays or any of that. Both these teams are fired up about their defenses, and they'll rely on that to get the win.
Where do you sit on Arch? Because you hear Jordan Rodgers the other day talking about how the tape doesn't match the hype, but then you have a guy like Feinbaum also on your network talking about how he could be the greatest college quarterback since Tim Tebow. Where do you think he fills in?
I'm still unsure. 224 snaps last year, Stormy. Only 6 on the road or neutral site. And so that's where I kind of start to gauge guys, is when I see him in these crazy environments, which is Saturday, is going to be here in Columbus. So I'm going to wait and see approach. He's got great toys to play with on that offense. There's a lot of guys to replace on the offensive line. That's the most important part of the game because no one's going to do well in their first road start if they don't have protection from their offensive line. And Texas, they've recruited like crazy. They've done really well in the transfer portal. They have talent, but there's just an essence of an offensive line working together for the first time in this kind of environment is kind of weary. But I think the world, talking to guys on the
Oh, no, I think we lost him. But we've talked about that a lot with Texas coming into this game, is that 4 of 5 offensive linemen coming in, brand new guys. How is that going to be protecting a quarterback who's making his debut as being the guy? I know it's not his first time playing, but first true start as being the full-time quarterback in a place like Ohio State is tough. Yeah,
I think it's relatively hard to gauge, obviously, how it's going to look. I think the talent's going to be there along the offensive line, so you can kind of bank on that. It's just, does that all come together to give him the ability to throw the ball? And I would also say, too, I think we tend to forget about this because quarterback is obviously such an important position. Can they run block? I think is an important point. So, Steve, you were finishing up your point about what we're looking at, especially with this offensive line for Texas.
Yeah, sorry. I just look at the offensive line as being a question. No quarterback's going to have success if they don't have good offensive line play. So that's the biggest key, and that's the unknown. That's why it makes it a hard game to handicap for me.
Well, Steve, LSU is going to have that similar question on their offensive line after losing 4 guys to the NFL draft as well, and they are taking on Clemson. Will the real Death Valley please stand up? Where do you sit on that side?
I really like Clemson in this game, Stormy. When I look at the matchup, there's more I know with Clemson. Number 1 in returning production, both sides of the ball. Klubnik, I love the receivers for Clemson. Their defensive line is going to be a handful, and we just talked about offensive line in this Texas-Ohio State game. The offensive line for LSU is a big, big question mark to me. And then going into this kind of environment, you're really got your hands full, knowing what it's like to play on the road in this type of game. And that's where it gets me to the point about LSU. Don't lose faith. I know everyone's going to come after Brian Kelly, but you're 0-1. You probably lost to who I have, the number 1 team in the country, in Clemson. There's plenty of road ahead. Just, keep your wits about you. It's a brutal way to start your season. Now, if you ever won the game, now you're off and running even more so. But again, it's a long marathon in these games. And the way the committee said, strength of record, strength of schedule is going to matter more. A good loss, there are those. A good loss at Clemson is going to carry plenty of validity as the season moves on.
All right, we want to make sure we get all these big ones with you before maybe get some of the smaller ones. Notre Dame, Miami, the Fighting Tim Murray's about a 2.5-point favorite. Totals in the range of 49.5. What are we doing here?
Yeah, I really like to win it. The Ohio State and Texas and this game, the overs were all over in the 50s, and now you've seen them come down. Being at the Notre Dame game last year to start their season at A&M, I thought it was methodical, but there also was a sense of fearlessness that Marcus Freeman brings, and that's why I like Notre Dame. I think their defense, number one pass defense in the country last year, they might be deeper across the board this year. The best upgrade of any position unit, I think, in the country is what Notre Dame did at wide receiver. And that's, you see what they did last year. Now they have actual guys that can catch the ball and do something with it when they have it. So I lean Notre Dame. Again, I think it's an under game. If I got to take anything, it's under. And Miami's just a lot more. People have been impressed with Carson Beck, but they don't have the top six pass catchers they had last year. So I think.
Dang, unfortunate connection there with Steve. That is one of the more interesting games to me. I'm on Notre Dame money line. I like them to win this game. I have questions about Carson Beck gelling in first time out against that Notre Dame secondary, but I think that's going to be, to me, one of my favorite games of the weekend.
I refuse to speak until Steve comes back. No, I'm with you. I agree more with his angle. I'm kind of kicking myself on missing out on the total and betting this thing under. That's where I feel the strongest when you're looking at what this game could potentially be. I think, was it Tim yesterday we talked to who brought up the fact that maybe we're sleeping a little bit on Carson Beck, but it's a receiver core that we do have a little bit of question about, but I think we do have Steve back. So, Steve, you want to wrap on at least the Notre Dame Miami thoughts if you had any else?
I like Notre Dame in that spot. I really do, and I think they're built to go on the road and win.
As do I, Steve. Let's roll. Obviously, we've got a ton of games to choose from with week one. We had our nice little appetizer in week 0, but there's just so much across the board. Did you have a favorite wager from week one outside of those top 3 contests we talked about?
Yeah, I know you got everybody out there is full of public picks, but I really like the matchup for Utah against UCLA. When you talk about Utah and the issue that we had with Cam Rising, is he ever going to play again? The last 2 years, it felt like. But now with this system of bringing in a quarterback and bringing along that offensive coordinator also, and knowing what Whittingham's been up against, I think this team's prepared, and I think they're prepped to win the Big 12. So I expect a big seed. They could have the best offensive line in the country, and I don't know how much is around Nico at UCLA. So I like Utah Saturday night, late night.
Steve, before we get you out of here, I was telling Stormy, I've been telling her the last couple of days, UTEP, Utah State, it's going to be a banger. It's going to be, I think UTEP's going to be live. You got anything ugly, anything under the radar? One of these smaller games that only just degenerates would love to watch?
I kind of lean towards South Florida tonight. Is that ugly enough? They haven't been heard from in a long time. But I just think, I think Jency was that good and that important. And I really like Golis, the head coach for South Florida. He's got his quarterback back. He's a great offensive mind. So I like South Florida to cover tonight.
Steve, you're awesome. Thank you for fighting through the technical stuff with us, and we can't wait to watch you on game day this weekend.
Thanks, dude.
Sorry about all that, and anytime. Appreciate you guys.
Stanford Steve Coughlin, the best.
He said anytime. Call him tomorrow.
Right now. Also, I want to give him a quick shout out too. I was listening to the SV pod this week, and he was talking about the UNLV game. And for a moment, I thought they were going to criticize where to find this game because you heard
old stomping grounds.
SVP was like, what even is the thing? And then Stanford T was like, the app was actually awesome, really easy to find. I was like, all right, let's not criticize the Mountain West Network. Makes me feel good. Very easy to watch the game, although it was a bleep show of a watch if you're a Rebel fan.
Well, I have some more thoughts on UNLV.
Okay.
Especially for this week.
Okay. As we know, I am already invested in the over in that game.
And I'm invested in our betting split, Stormy. If you check them out at vsin.com/subscribe, you can use it as part of your handicapping process for college football week 1, which starts today.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, and as the official horse racing partner of VSiN, First Bet is built for bettors who demand more. First Bet isn't just about placing a bet, it's about helping bettors of all levels with proprietary AI handicapping tools that provide data-driven insights to help you make more informed bets. First Bet's in-app tools give you win, place, and show probabilities for each runner, so you can quickly and easily identify good value plays and improve your ROI. And right now, you can take advantage of their limited-time $250 sign-up offer to claim your bonus. Use the promo code VSiN250 when you sign up in the First Bet app or at firstbet.com. That's the number one, stbet.com. Use our promo code VSiN250, VSIN 250, alongside Jonathan Von Tobel, Stormy Buonantony with you. Good start for my Diamondbacks, up 3-1 right now in the bottom of the second. Although Brew Crew does have 2 on right now. 2 outs, we'll see how it plays out. Red Sox and Orioles tied at 2, and the Stros up 3-0 on the Rockies. We just got started a little bit ago with Pirates Cardinals as well. Pittsburgh up 1-0 early there. So we'll keep tabs on all of those. I am on the Diamondbacks money line today, though, so we'll sweat that out as we go over the next hour and a half. Wanted to get, though, a little bit more from you on something you kind of left us with at the end of the segment, that you had something on UNLV Sam Houston coming up this weekend?
Yeah, so I've added UNLV minus 9.5 to the card. I'm going to take a little bit of a shot here. Obviously, they've been downgraded from where they were at the beginning of the week and when the opening number was at 13.5. And understandably, to an extent, you get into a shootout, and it looks pretty bad for you defensively against Idaho State. But in talking to people that are covering the program, around the program, one of the things that is – because I'll go back to one of my observations, and I don't know how much of the game you watched, but one of the things that sticks out to me, when you're facing an offense that is running trip sets of wide receivers – and you're constantly giving up big plays on those sort of formations. And part of that is just the miscommunication of those routes that overlap, and you're not communicating, not switching properly, not saying who you have in your certain defensive coverages. To me, those are issues that can be fixed. Well, lo and behold, in talking to people that cover the program and around the program, Stormy, at safety, a kid that was expected to play about 30, 35 snaps, late scratch right before the game. Their safety rotation was kind of in flux throughout the contest. And so it was an issue of communication as opposed to, hey, the secondary is going to be pretty bad. So in terms of it's an issue of communication as opposed to skill, we'll put it that way. So if you're going to be a little bit healthier here, if you're going to get the guys that you need back in this rotation, which it sounds like that's going to be the case, your defense should be better. You shouldn't be giving up these giant chunk plays that you were giving up throughout that contest against Idaho State. So if I'm going to assume that that's going to be better than what it was last week, and then I look at UNLV and what they did offensively, I think you trust what they did. I mean, in totality, we're talking about 539 total yards, 9.7 yards per pass attempt, 7.5 yards per rush attempt against Idaho State. If you're just analyzing UNLV from an offensive standpoint, they were everything you wanted them to be. Calandria in the game, 15 to 21 on 28 dropbacks, 195 yards, had a PFF grade overall, just offensively, of 86.9, didn't commit a turnover-worthy play. He looked pretty strong in this system for Mullen. I think all of this put together with this number now under 10, I'm going to take a little bit of a shot that this adjustment was now we've come a little too far and that they still deserve to be just over about a 10-point favorite or so. And with that key number, I think UNLV can do this. So we'll see. Sam Houston, I don't really trust in offensively, so I think the Rebels are going to be able to do it. This is kind of my trust that what I saw was issues in terms of communication, that if you're going to be healthier, that communication gets fixed, you're going to get a better defensive effort from UNLV.
Is one person enough, you think, though, to really fix that, I guess is my question.
No, but I think that, again, if the problems are, hey, in these formations, you guys have to communicate. If it's just this, and it sounds simple, I don't mean to make it out to be, but if some of the miscommunications are, hey, on this formation, I've got this guy, and if they cross, then we have to switch that, right? Those are things that I feel like you should be able to fix over the course of film study and watching, so that if you run into those again, that should not be a problem. So we'll see. Okay. That's part of the risk. I mean, you could be right, and I could be wrong. And I'm going to watch this team tomorrow and be like, holy smokes, they're just giving up really big plays, and this sucks again, and they're not going to get it done. But just from what I saw and then having that corroborated by people around the team, it just makes me feel like maybe that is something that can't be fixed here over the course of 5 days.
I mean, they could still struggle to an extent and still cover this number, right? Like Sam Houston's offense isn't any good either. They were 2 of 14 on third down, 0 for on fourth down as well last week against Western Kentucky. So I still like my total play on over 60.5 from earlier this week. And we are seeing, by the way, 61.5, 62.5 out there. So that's just a good note as well to be tuning into this show early in the week when we are attacking some of these numbers where they're at. But interesting. I think regardless of the way that you looked at this, if you had to pick a side, I would still pick UNLV.
Well, especially the number. I was just going to say, like, look, 10 is this somewhat key number in college football. So if you're going in that regard too, laying 9.5, I'll kind of go back to, look, they were a 30-point favorite for a reason. Maybe it was a little too strong, but there is still the archetype of that power-rated team somewhere in here, if that's a fair way to put it. And so I think you can achieve that. And again, I do think you would agree with me here, which is why I bet the over. I liked what I saw on offense. I think the offense looks pretty solid, and it was everything you needed it to be for the most part.
And I would also say, if you're Dan Mullen, was that not the best game possible for you to win and get out of and then say, okay, look at what we need to get fixed?
Yes.
And like, this is your reality check. I bring in all these guys. You're supposed to be from these big programs, supposed to know what you're doing, all that. Like that, I feel like is such a good teachable moment and game where you still get a win. You still get the W in the column, and now you have to come out and fix things the next week.
I do wonder, too, if maybe it wasn't like a ton of snaps, but 15 snaps for Alex Orji did not look good. I do kind of hope that we're done with that experiment. You just hand the keys to Calandria this week, too.
Okay. Also, I did want to follow up. I agree completely with Stanford Steve on Utah, by the way. I was listening to a show on my drive in to work today, and it was anti-Utah, and a big part of the argument was because UCLA has the better quarterback. And I was like, tell me you don't know about this game without telling me you don't know about this game. I can't remember. That's what I'm saying.
Say it with your chest.
I can't remember whose voice it was, but I just...
Was it on this network?
It was not. I was giggling to myself.
So you don't listen to
I do.
all the time?
Honestly, what happens is there's a commercial. I change channels. I got to flip. I'm a flipper. Are you not a flipper? I don't like commercials.
You listen to traditional radio on the way in?
Sirius XM.
Oh, okay. All right.
Sirius XM channel 158. Check that out.
Check that out. Or check out the Money Moves podcast, too, by the way. Like, rate, review, subscribe.
Nailed it. As high as we are on Devin Dampier, and I am not particularly a believer in Nico Iamaleava, I was like, I don't know. And listen, this has gone in Utah's favor. -3.5 out to as high as 6. 5.5 still available, though, if you are interested. And I really like the Utes in this spot. I agree with everything Stanford Steve was saying about the Utah offensive line that's in front of Dampier, especially after, think about the numbers that he put up last year behind a bad offensive line in New Mexico to now being in this situation, having a defense that you feel confident is going to back you up. I know this is on the road. Old school Pac-12 after dark. That's now Big 10, Big 12. It's going to be a fun one. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to watch this live because I'm going to be on my game that starts a half an hour earlier with Cal and Oregon State. Another former Pac-12 after dark spot, but it'll be fun.
If I could weave a web from Devin Dampier, starting quarterback, to Utah, to in-state rival and former head coach Bronco Mendenhall in Utah State.
Yes.
That is one side, too. So I have Utah as part of the Super Contest college football card for week 1, as do I have UTEP against Utah State. I'm gonna push back a little on the blind belief that Bronco Mendenhall can get this done. I think Utah State's roster is abysmal, and I don't think this is going to happen here.
He spoke more glowingly on our air about Devin Dampier than he did his own team.
Barnes, yes. Look, I was going to say, I'm going to check here. You can tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think Devin Dampier's walking through those doors. I think that was a big reason why he turned around New Mexico. He had a quality, a Power 4 quarterback on his roster that was playing in the Mountain West. I don't think that's the case. And Malachi Nelson named the starter for UTEP. We'll see if he can actually get it done. But obviously a former, I think he was a 5-star. Wasn't Malachi Nelson back in the day? Either way, I think that there's a shot that we're kind of overvaluing Utah State here too. So this was also part of my college football card.
Number 1 overall player in the 2023 class, according to ESPN.
There we go. Yeah, that's what it was. So it goes back to what I said about UNLV, where there's still some of that in there, you would assume, right, with a guy like Nelson?
Yeah. Listen, Bryson Barnes is not Devin Dampier. I'm not going to argue with you on that one, but I don't think he's that bad.
I think if you evaluate,
I saw some really good moments from him at Utah. So
I think if you evaluate the roster, it doesn't really look great.
All right. I don't have a lot of thoughts in that game.
Yeah.
It was funny when we were talking about this. I was like, I don't know anything about UTEP this year, but I thought you liked Bronco, so I was surprised to see you go the other way.
I do. I just, a couple of things can be true. I'm so fired up. I feel like it's Friday, even though it's not. Technically, it's Friday for us because we're not going to be here tomorrow.
Although, I mean, you're going to have a couple of great hosts stepping in, Keith Irizarry and Ariel Epstein with you. So if you do want some MLB props and everything, you're going to be locked and loaded with that tomorrow. But, okay, we do need to take a quick time out here. Me too. And there are still like a couple bets that we haven't even gotten to. We'll have best bets at the end of hour 2, which is how we're going to kind of shift gears as we enter this next hour. A handful of things to discuss, one of which is very important for those of you who bet with DraftKings Sportsbook. Stick around. We'll get into that and more next here on Money Moves.